Hey guys, tonight we slip into the kind of morning you absolutely would not want to wake up in, one where the air tastes like cold metal, the grass is wet enough to soak through your shoes in seconds, and a low, colourless fog clings to everything like it's trying to hide the day from you. You're standing on a broad, uneven field with a bunch of villagers who look just as confused as you feel, and somewhere out in that greyness, another army is forming. You can't see them yet, but you can hear life shifting out there. Distant armor creaking, horses snorting, maybe even someone coughing through nerves so intense they might just pass out. And yes, you probably won't survive this, statistically speaking. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to help me feel a little less like I'm whispering into the void, drop your location and your local time in the comments. It's always amazing to see where everyone's listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand on the muster field, boots already sinking slightly into dew-soaked earth, and the sky is still deciding whether it wants to be morning. The fog drifts low and lazy, the perfect natural curtain to hide an entire army, your army, from the one supposedly forming a few hundred yards away. Historians still argue whether medieval battles typically started this early, or if chroniclers just exaggerated the drama. But whatever the truth, this morning feels painfully real as you tighten your grip on the spear you were handed just yesterday. Around you, the troops look less like warriors and more like a collection of townsfolk dragged from warm beds. One has mismatched shoes. Another keeps nervously patting the top of his helmet as if making sure it hasn't popped off. The village miller, a round man who has never rushed a day in his life, tries stretching like he's about to run a marathon, despite the armor digging into his sides. Someone coughs. Someone else mutters a quick prayer. A teenager near you discovers his helmet blocks peripheral vision and panics briefly. You shift your weight and listen. The fog makes sound travel strangely. Some noises feel too close, others too far. You hear a horse scrape its hoof somewhere in the mist. You hear the metallic clicking of chainmail settling into place, and you hear, faintly, the low rhythmic hum of men trying to pretend they're not terrified. The truth is, you don't even know how many soldiers your side has. The local lord, currently busy yelling at his squire for misplacing his favorite gauntlet, insisted the field is full of able-bodied fighters. What you're seeing is more a polite crowd with pitchforks and poor decision-making. But that's just how battles were. Half the men drafted, the other half volunteering out of obligation, curiosity, or the delightful promise of not paying taxes this year. A mainstream historical fact, by the way. Medieval lords often used tax exemptions to fill their ranks. Free rent in exchange for maybe dying on a soggy field. People took it surprisingly often. A quirky tidbit. Some armies genuinely brought good luck charms made of onions, yes, onions. Supposedly the strong smell scared demons away. The only real demons today are the ones in your stomach, twisting and flipping while the fog refuses to lift. Your spear feels heavier than it did yesterday when the captain had you practice thrusting into a straw bale. That bale didn't swing back. That bale didn't have friends. Most importantly, that bale didn't have a loud, angry heartbeat inside a chest about to run full speed in your direction. Someone behind you burps nervously. You remind yourself that fear is normal. Even seasoned knights got shaky. The difference was they had years of training, a decent breakfast, and armor worth more than your family's entire cottage. You have damp socks and a borrowed spear with a suspicious bend halfway down the shaft. A breeze breaks briefly through the mist, shifting the fog like a slow-moving curtain. And for a second you catch a glimpse of shapes, dark silhouettes, large groupings, maybe men holding shields, or maybe it's trees, or bushes, or your imagination getting creative. Historians still argue whether soldiers truly saw the enemy long before the engagement, or if most initial contact was just run into the fog and hope you hit the right people. Based on what you're seeing now, meaning nothing, you're voting for the latter. Your captain, an older man whose beard is doing most of the leadership, steps forward and mutters something about forming ranks. No one moves. He sounds annoyed, clears his throat, tries again louder. Ranks begin to form, more or less. Your village's carpenter somehow ends up in the front row despite clearly wanting to be anywhere else. You shuffle into place, shoulder to shoulder with people you've known your whole life. Funny how standing this close now feels different. Everyone is breathing shallowly. Everyone is waiting for anything to happen. The fog clings thicker again, swallowing even the little you thought you saw. The quiet turns heavier. A moment stretches too long, too thin. And that's when a distant horn sounds deep, mournful, and absolutely unmistakable. Your stomach drops, because that was their horn. And another one answers from your side, though it sounds a bit more like a rusty kettle than a war signal. Some armies had beautifully crafted brass instruments. Yours has a guy wheezing into a bent tube. You try not to judge. Times are hard. A flock of birds explodes upward from somewhere in the fog, and instinctively everyone flinches. You clutch your spear tighter, shoulders tensing, waiting for shapes to emerge, waiting for reality to break open. But for now, it's still just fog. Fog and fear. Fog and a field full of people pretending they're ready. The horn fades, silence returns, and now, the day is officially beginning. You're already regretting the armor, and you haven't even moved yet. It's the kind of discomfort that sneaks up on you first, a gentle pinch at the shoulder, then a creeping tightness around your ribs, and finally that itchy, impossible to ignore, awareness that this whole metal outfit was never designed for a normal human body. The blacksmith swore it would fit anyone, which you now understand meant it fit exactly no one. You can feel sweat gathering at the back of your neck, even though the air is still cold enough to sting. The padded gambeson underneath the plates is thick, lumpy, and absolutely determined to trap every bit of heat you produce. Medieval soldiers wrote about this, at least the ones literate enough to complain in writing. A mainstream historical fact. Gambesons were so stuffed with linen and wool layers that they often doubled as winter jackets. Fantastic for December. Terrible for panicked breathing on a battlefield. You adjust your straps again, because everyone around you is adjusting theirs. A collective ritual of discomfort. The leather creaks. A buckle digs into your collarbone. And the helmet, oh! The helmet is a masterpiece of near-useless design for someone with your head shape. It slides a little to the left, giving you a glamorous diagonal view of the world. When you straighten it, your cheek gets pinched between the padding and the rim. You try not to yelp. It would ruin the mystique you definitely don't have. A quirky tidbit: some soldiers stuff their helmets with herbs like lavender, thyme, or mint to mask the smell of sweat and old metal. You would kill for some lavender right now. Instead, you're getting a strange mix of iron, damp cloth, and whoever wore this thing before you. Is it weird that it smells faintly of onions? Possibly. But based on the earlier onion superstition, maybe it's an upgrade. Demon-repelling headgear. Could be worse. Your captain walks past, giving the line a quick inspection. He nods approvingly at the tall kid next to you whose armor actually does fit him, and then raises an eyebrow at you as if your helmet's slight tilt is a personal insult. You try to stand straighter. The armor responds by poking you in at least 3 places at once. The fog thins just enough to give you a sense of space. The field slopes gently downward, and you realize the ground here has been churned by countless feet. Someone must have been marching around at dawn or maybe last night. The earth is soft, flexible under your boots, threatening to betray your balance the moment anything unexpected happens, which will be any second now. Your fellow villagers don't look much better in their gear. The miller's breastplate is too high, making him look permanently surprised. The butcher's chainmail hangs unevenly, one sleeve brushing his knee. The baker's helmet sits so low his eyebrows have vanished entirely. You can relate. Medieval armor wasn't standardized by size, another mainstream fact. Most pieces were custom-made for wealthy knights and awkwardly borrowed by everyone else. You shift again, trying to find the magical position where nothing hurts. Spoiler, it doesn't exist. Somewhere behind the lines, a horse snorts, and the sound ripples down the formation. People stiffen, as if remembering that real cavalry is out there somewhere. Historians still argue whether common levies ever felt confident in armor, or if most simply endured it as a temporary curse. Judging by your experience, it's the second one. Your lord finally mounts his horse, a massive beast with more muscle than your entire village. His armor glints faintly in the dim light, perfectly shaped, perfectly polished. Of course it fits him. He gives a rousing speech about honor, land, and the glory of defending your home. But all you catch are the words, "stand firm," and "no matter what happens," which are objectively terrible phrases to hear before breakfast. Then he says the line every frightened soldier hates. "You all look ready." You do not. No one does. The only one who looks ready is the horse, and even he looks like he's reconsidering his life choices. A squire jogs by, handing out last-minute equipment. Someone gets a new strap. Someone else gets a dagger that looks suspiciously like a sharpened kitchen knife. You receive nothing. Perfect. Apparently you already look equipped. You try rolling your shoulders. Bad idea. The edge of your breastplate pinches your arm. Rolling the other way hits the collar. You exhale slowly, shifting your grip on the spear, telling yourself it'll get easier once adrenaline kicks in. It won't, but you lie to yourself anyway. Survival strategy. The fog lifts a little more, revealing shapes your own soldiers, stretching out in two long lines. You see the banner, a faded cloth flapping lazily, its painted emblem barely visible. This is the moment before moments, the sliver of time where everyone is too aware of everything. Their armor, their heartbeat, the faint sound of enemy horns somewhere ahead. Someone makes a joke. "At least if we die, we won't have to do taxes," and a few people chuckle nervously. You laugh too, mostly because it's either laugh or hyperventilate inside a sweating metal bucket. You take one more breath, deep and shaky. The fog thins again. The day is warming, and whatever is waiting out there is about to meet you, whether your armor fits or not. You start marching before your brain fully approves the idea. 1 minute you're standing in awkward formation, adjusting straps and trying not to think too hard. The next, someone shouts an order, maybe your captain, maybe someone with a louder voice, and the entire line lurches, forward like a hesitant, armor-clad caterpillar. Your boots squish into the damp soil, and you immediately realize the ground is far less solid than it looked. Perfect. Exactly what you wanted. Mud with ambition. The march begins slow, because no one is entirely sure where they're going. The fog is still thick enough to hide anything beyond 20 paces, and the captain keeps glancing at the scout beside him, a wiry man with a bow, and the kind of expression that says, "I regret all my life choices." Scouts should know where the enemy is. Yours looks like he'd get lost in a hallway. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval armies often had terrible communication. Orders relayed down the line could morph into something entirely different by the time they reached the back. Advance to the ridge could easily turn into dance on a bridge. So as you trudge forward, you have that nagging anxiety that at least part of your group might currently be marching toward a swamp or a compant, a flock of very confused sheep. A quirky tidbit? Some soldiers wore charms carved from stale bread for good luck. Mold was considered a sign of spiritual protection. If that's true, the loaf in your kitchen back home is probably a demigod. Your armor rattles with each step. The spear bounces awkwardly against your palm. You try to adjust your stride to something heroic, but marching in medieval gear is less majestic knight and more sack of metal slowly tipping forward. You can't help but wonder if your posture in paintings would at least look cool, though, with your luck. You'd be drawn slightly off-center with an unflattering chin. As you keep moving, the fog starts to thin in patches. You glimpse the faint outline of trees, a hill, the distant flicker of metal. Or maybe your eyes are inventing things because they're tired of staring at grey nothingness. Historians still argue whether soldiers' accounts of seeing the enemy approach like ghosts through mist were poetic exaggeration, or genuine moments like this straining your eyes to make sense of drifting shapes, hoping they're allies and not horsemen preparing to run you down. The march slows again. The scout murmurs something to the captain. The captain mutters something far less polite. You can't hear the words, but you catch the tone. "We should not be walking this direction." A cluster of officers huddles, gesturing into the fog, pointing at invisible landmarks only they apparently believe in. Your row shifts to a halt. A man behind you bumps into your backplate with a solid thunk, mutters an apology, and then immediately gets nudged from behind himself. It causes a small chain reaction where half the formation bumps forward like dominoes made of clumsy humans. Somewhere deep in the mist, you hear something metallic like a sword being unsheathed, or armor scraping, or possibly a goose with attitude, The fog plays tricks with sound. You grip your spear tighter and glance at the man beside you. He glances back. Neither of you says anything, but your eyes hold the same message. Do you hear that? Because I definitely heard that. Another sound echoes, distant shouting. It comes from somewhere ahead, carried strangely by the wet air. You can't tell if it's your allies signaling position or the enemy warming up their vocal cords for a morning of bad decisions. Your captain barks an order. Forward again. This time the pace is quicker, almost urgent. The line surges ahead, and you do your best not to fall behind. Mud sucks at your boots with every step, and the spear tip wobbles uncomfortably close to the person in front of you. You angle it slightly upward, hoping to avoid stabbing a friend before meeting an actual foe. The fog breaks in a long, slow sweep, unveiling more of the world inch by inch. You see a ridge rising ahead. That's where the enemy probably is or was or might be, depending on which rumor floating down the ranks you choose to believe. Someone claims the enemy has twice your numbers. Someone else claims their commander died last night after eating a questionable trout. Someone insists we're actually fighting at the wrong field entirely. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers really marched into battle with such patchy information, or if chroniclers exaggerated the confusion. But as you trudge forward now, hearing contradictory updates every 30 seconds, you're leaning toward absolutely yes. A horn blasts somewhere not close, but not far either. You flinch. Everyone flinches. The sound vibrates the air around you. A second horn answers, this one thinner, higher pitched. Maybe theirs, maybe yours, maybe someone who tripped while holding an instrument. Your heart bumps harder. Your breath shortens. The fog ahead flickers again, revealing movement shadows shifting, forming, dissolving. You're watching silhouettes dance on the threshold of reality. The scout suddenly freezes. The captain curses under his breath. The line slows. You feel it before seeing anything clearly that something up there is wrong. The way the air feels tighter, the way birds fall silent, the way your captain, whose beard has seen more battles than you've seen winters, suddenly looks like he's doing math he does not enjoy. The march forward stops. The fog thins one last time. And for the first time today, you see the enemy. Not clearly, not fully, just enough. Shields, spears, a banner, a line of bodies waiting for you. Your mouth goes dry, and the day begins to turn from uneasy to inevitable. The moment the captain raises his hand for everyone to stop, the entire line stiffens like a single creature trying very hard not to breathe too loudly. You stand there in the damp morning air, staring into a half-revealed world where the enemy exists just enough to haunt you, but not enough to reassure you that they're human. The fog curls around their silhouettes, making them look taller, broader, more numerous, like the mist is auditioning for a horror movie. The quiet is the worst part, a heavy, swollen stillness that presses into your ears. Even the birds seem to have taken the morning off. You can hear your heartbeat thumping against your armor, loud enough you're half convinced the enemy could hear it too. A mainstream historical fact. Many medieval battles involved long, agonizing periods of waiting before the fighting started. Chroniclers describe these pauses as the testing of souls, which is a poetic way of saying everyone stood around terrified while pretending they weren't. And now you're experiencing that exact flavor of terror, diluted slightly by sarcasm, and the fact that your left sock is slipping down inside your boot. The enemy line holds position just beyond clear vision. Shields arranged, spears angled upward. A banner droops lazily in the wind, some sort of animal symbol, though from here it could be a lion, a bear, or a disgruntled sheep for all you can tell. They are motionless, which somehow makes them even scarier. Humans are supposed to fidget. Humans are supposed to shift weight. These look like statues carved for the sole purpose of ruining your morning. A quirky tidbit? Some medieval soldiers believed that if your nose itched before battle, it meant someone was talking about you or gossiping about your upcoming death. As your nose begins to itch now, you have a powerful urge to blame the enemy for rude commentary. You adjust your grip on your spear for the 20th time. The wood feels rough against your palm, warm where your hand has been, cool where it hasn't. The tip points slightly upward, wobbling when your breath shakes the slightest bit. The man next to you nudges his helmet a little, as if preparing to see something terrible and wanting to make sure his view is centered for maximum horror. Your captain steps forward. He raises his voice, not too loud, not dramatic, just firm enough to cut through the fog. Hold the line. Not charge, not advance, not run for your lives, just hold, which is more frightening than any of the other options. Because holding means you are deliberately waiting for something bad to come at you first. Historians still argue whether commanders preferred to initiate an attack or force the enemy to make the first move. Each tactic had its advantages, but either way, someone had to stand perfectly still at the most stressful moment of their life. Today, that someone is you. The enemy continues doing absolutely nothing, which somehow feels like an aggressive strategy. A shout echoes from your left. You whip your head toward it, startled, but it's just a nervous Levy dropping his spear and scrambling to pick it up. The clatter of metal on wood rings across the field. Your heart leaps. Several men flinch. Your captain sighs loudly, the heavy exhale of a man who deeply regrets the career path he chose. A breeze sweeps through the field, teasing the fog, tugging at the grass, and cooling the sweat forming at your temples. For a moment, you can see the enemy clearly, their helmets glinting faintly, their shields overlapping in practiced formation. Some have long spears planted into the earth in front of them. Others stand tense, shoulders raised, arms locked. Then the fog swallows them again, as if the world is censoring your stress for dramatic pacing. You swallow hard. The silence is stretching, stretching, stretching. Too long, far too long. Someone behind you whispers, "Are they waiting for something?" Another answers, "What if they're waiting for us?" A third voice quietly suggests, "Maybe they're eating breakfast," which momentarily breaks the tension as several soldiers mutter that they also wish they were eating breakfast. You shift your weight again. The ground feels softer than before, the rising warmth drawing moisture upward. Little pockets of mud begin forming around your boots. Your toes feel cold and damp. Your fingers feel numb and clammy. You are quickly discovering that the human body cannot decide whether to sweat or freeze during moments of extreme dread. A horn blasts in the distance. You freeze. Everyone freezes. Your breath catches in your throat and stays there, lodging itself like a stubborn walnut. The horn is low and droning, almost mournful. It rolls through the fog like a warning, or maybe a promise. You straighten instinctively, your spear raising without conscious thought. The soldiers around you tighten their grips. You can feel the tension ripple through the line like a wave. But the enemy doesn't move. Not yet. The waiting stretches further still, an impossible tension that makes your shoulders ache and your teeth clamp together. This is the reality of medieval battles, not the Hollywood instant clash, but long minutes of suspense, where every second feels like it might be your last peaceful one. Your captain whispers to no one in particular, "Steady." You feel your pulse in your fingertips. You hear someone somewhere in the formation quietly humming, perhaps a nervous habit, perhaps a prayer. Someone else mutters a promise to a deity you've never heard of, and honestly, you're tempted to join in. Then, a shield in the enemy line shifts. Just one, barely, but it's enough. The stillness fractures. Voices rise, orders echo, movement ripples through their ranks. Suddenly there is shape and intent and a terrifying clarity to the moment. They are preparing. The killing quiet is ending. Your spear tip trembles slightly. You can't tell if it's your hand or the ground vibrating. The fog shivers, the air thickens, and just like that, your waiting is over. The first sound isn't what you expect. You brace for a roar, a charge, a stampede, something dramatic, but instead it's a soft hiss. A strange, quick whisper slicing through the air above you, so faint it takes a second for your brain to register danger. Then another hiss, then three, then dozens. Your captain shouts, "Down! Shields up!" right as the sky begins to rain. Not water, arrows. They come from nowhere, just streaks of motion flickering through the thinning fog, slicing overhead like angry insects. You jerk downward, instinct taking over faster than thought. The man in front of you raises his shield just in time, and an arrow thuds into it with a solid, deeply unpleasant thunk. Another slams into the ground near your foot. A third ricochets off a helmet somewhere to your right, causing its wearer to shout a string of very creative medieval complaints. A mainstream historical fact, volleys often opened battles because arrows were designed to terrify as much as injure. The psychological effect was huge. Soldiers felt hunted before they ever saw an enemy's face. And now, you're feeling that perfectly. The fog glows faintly with movement as more arrows arc overhead. It's surreal, like watching shadows rain upward before they fall down again. You can't help but think they're beautiful in a horrible, these might kill me kind of way. You crouch low, trying to make yourself smaller. Spoiler, the armor does not help. Your helmet blocks half your vision as you scan the fog for the next wave. The man beside you breathes loudly through his nose, each exhale fogging up the inside of his visor. You don't blame him. You're doing the exact same thing. A quirky tidbit? Some soldiers believed whistling arrows carried curses. Certain Fletchers even notched arrow shafts to create eerie sounds in flight. You swear you hear one whistle now, high-pitched, almost musical, before it embeds itself into the grass 3 feet away. Then the fog tears open with motion. You see the enemy archers for the first time, dark shapes against the grey, drawing their strings back with terrifying calm. Rows of them. Too many. Enough to make the breath in your chest turn to cold lead. Your captain yells again, "Hold! Hold!" Why commanders love shouting "Hold" during moments where holding feels like the worst possible option is a mystery historians still argue about. Your line hunkers down. Shields angle upward. You curl your shoulders inward as another volley releases. This one comes in heavier. Arrows hammer the shields with rapid, rattling impacts, sounding like hail on a tin roof. A spear carrier to your left curses loudly as an arrow skims his boot and buries itself into the mud behind him. Another soldier tries to swat an arrow away mid-flight, an absurd, panicked gesture. The arrow slices past his hand and vanishes into the fog. You smell burning feathers. It takes you a moment to realize why. One of the arrows was fired alight. It lands nearby with a tiny puff of smoke and a sad little sizzle as the damp grass chokes it out. Fire arrows aren't as dramatic as the movies make them. Mostly they're a morale trick, and a damp one at that. Your captain glances back, evaluates the chaos, and mutters something under his breath that sounds like, "At least it didn't hit anything important." You're not sure whether he means a person or his banner. The fog ripples again, thinning just enough for the world to sharpen. And that's when it happens. A single arrow lands with a crack into your shield, one you weren't fully holding up. The impact jolts your entire arm, sending a painful vibration through your wrist and up into your shoulder. You bite back a very undignified yelp. The arrow sticks out at a ridiculous angle, quivering like it's mocking you. The man beside you stares, wide-eyed. "You okay?" he hisses. "Yeah," you whisper back, "just reconsidering all my life choices." Another soldier behind you laughs, a short, breathless sound that says, "If I don't laugh, I'll scream." Somewhere in the fog, a horn blares again, longer this time. Deeper. A command signal. But you don't know whose. The fog is too thick. The sound is too warped. It could be your side. It could be theirs. It could be someone entirely unrelated, practicing bad trumpet technique in the distance. Historians still argue whether soldiers could reliably interpret horns during battle. Judging by the current confusion, the answer seems to be a hard no. Your captain shouts, "Get ready," which is a terrible instruction because there is absolutely no correct way to get ready for what comes next. The archers lower their weapons. The fog stirs. Footsteps thrum the ground, heavy ones. A new sound rises through the mist. Shields locking. Spears leveling. Voices chanting. They're advancing. The first volley was to unsettle you. This part? This is to break you. You rise slowly, gripping your spear so tightly your knuckles ache, your heart rattling against your ribs like it's trying to escape. The archers fade back into the fog, replaced by a wall of armed men's shields overlapping, spears jutting outward like the teeth of a coming storm. The hissing of arrows is gone. Now, there is only the low, growing rumble of an army walking toward you. And you finally understand why everyone fears the moment after the first volley. Because now, you must meet the people who fired it. You've barely had time to catch your breath when the next terror announces itself, not with the hiss of arrows this time, but with a deep, resonant thud that travels up through your boots and into your bones. It's like the earth itself is bracing. You don't see anything at first, just fog, fog, and more. Fog, but you feel it. A vibration, a warning, a presence. Then another thud, then another. Rhythmic, heavy, growing. Your captain mutters, shields up, but it comes out shaky, as if even he isn't prepared. You raise your shield. It's thin, wooden, and feels absurdly small, like holding a dinner plate to block a falling log. A mainstream historical fact. Most medieval infantry shields weren't thick, indestructible slabs like in movies. They were light, wooden, and prone to cracking under real force. That's why soldiers reinforce them with leather or rawhide. Yours is not reinforced. At all. You realize this as your stomach drops to somewhere around your knees. The fog part's just enough for you to see movement, dark, bulky shapes breaking through the grey like something out of a nightmare slideshow. Horses. Armoured horses. You can't see riders yet, but the legs huge, pounding, impossibly fast, slice through the mist like they're shredding reality. Your breath hitches. The ground shivers again. The man beside you whispers, "Oh, no," in the exact tone of someone who understands gravity on a personal level. And then the riders appear. Dark outlines at first, then glints of steel. Then the full, horrifying picture, men in gleaming helmets, holding lances as long as fishing poles but far deadlier. They emerge from the fog in staggered formation, each horse snorting steam, each rider braced, each lance angled down at you, guessed it, you. Your shield suddenly feels like a very fragile hope. A quirky tidbit? Some soldiers swore that cavalry made the ground sing before a charge. You used to think that was poetic exaggeration. But now, with each hoofbeat, you hear a humming vibration that feels uncomfortably musical, like the earth is telling you, "Prepare for impact, buddy." Your captain yells, "Steady! Hold the line," which sounds bold but is really medieval code for, "We do not have a plan for this, please don't run." Historians still argue whether infantry lines actually held against cavalry as often as manuscripts claim, or if chroniclers simply liked the idea of brave peasants standing firm. Based on the men around you, the debate leans heavily toward chronicler optimism. The cavalry gets closer. Closer. Close enough that you can see the braided mane of the first horse. Close enough that the rider's plume flickers. Close enough that you can hear the metal plates shifting on the horse's chest. Everything inside you screams, "Run!" Everything outside you screams, "Do not run!" You squeeze your spear tighter. Your fingers ache. Your heartbeat slams inside your chest, like it's trying to punch through the armor and file a complaint. The horses accelerate. Their silhouettes sharpen. Your captain, trying to sound heroic, shouts, "Brace!" So you brace. You plant the butt of your spear deep in the wet ground. You angle the tip forward just as he taught you yesterday, hoping to create a wall of pointy disapproval. The line clatters with movement. Shields lift. Spears steady. Men whimper quietly. Someone behind you whispers a very emotional apology to their mother. The cavalry lowers their lances. And then, wham! The impact hits your shield like a battering ram, swung by someone who hates you personally. Your entire arm goes numb from wrist to shoulder. The force shoves you backward, your boots skidding in mud. You nearly fall, catching yourself at the last second. Your spear wobbles dangerously. You hear screams, yours? Someone else's? Hard to tell. The rider who hit your shield veers off as his horse barrels past, spraying mud. The massive body thunders by only a foot from your left shoulder. You feel the wind of it, hot and terrifying. The line buckles. Men jerk backward. Your shield cracks not fully, but enough to warn you that it won't survive a second enthusiastic hello from a horse. Another rider slams into the man 2 spots over. The impact knocks him flat. His spear snaps like a dry twig. His shield spins away into the grass like a tossed coin. Your captain bellows, something lost beneath the chaos. Horses shriek, men shout, spears collide with armor. The fog explodes with motion and noise. You grip your spear so tightly your knuckles go white under the gauntlets. Another horse approaches too fast. You angle your spear up, and the rider sees it just in time, yanking the reins to redirect. The beast veers past you, hooves kicking mud into your visor. Your spear barely grazes its flank. You feel the vibration all the way down the shaft into your bones. The cavalry doesn't stay long. They crash through, curve around, regroup. That's what cavalry does. Hit, bruise, disrupt, terrify, then loop for more. But the damage is done. Your shield shakes in your hand, cracked, splintered, loyal but dying. Your breathing is ragged. Your legs tremble. You're still standing, somehow, but the ground feels slippery, and your heart feels even slipperier. You look around. Some men are down, some are staggering, some are gripping their shields with both hands just to stop the shaking. And out in the fog, the cavalry is turning, reforming, preparing to come again. Your captain gathers breath to shout another order. Your shield creaks in your hand. The ground hums with the second wave, rising like a distant drum, and the terrifying truth sinks in. That first charge? That was just them saying hello? The ground hasn't even stopped trembling from the first charge when it starts again, another deep, rolling vibration that crawls up your legs and settles somewhere unpleasant in your stomach. You don't need to see anything to know what it means. Cavalry never hits once. That first pass was just the warm-up. The "hi, we're terrifying, nice to meet you" phase. Now comes the real one. You tighten what's left of your grip on your shield. The crack running down its surface makes it feel like you're holding a loaf of stale bread against a hurricane. The spear in your other hand trembles a little, not from the rumble of the ground, but from your own fingers. You try to hide it. It doesn't matter. Everyone can see everyone else shaking. This is a universal human problem. The fog shifts again like a curtain pulled back by an impatient stagehand, and you finally see them clearly. A long line of armored horses, forming with terrifying precision. Riders leaning forward, lances angled down, shields held tight. Their silhouettes cut through the mist like something out of an illuminated manuscript that forgot to include the part where you survive. A mainstream historical fact. Cavalry charges weren't always full gallop smashes. Often they built up speed gradually, using weight, noise, and psychological terror to break the line before they even touched it. You're experiencing all three right now. The horses thunder, the riders shout, and your brain politely suggests you lie down and play dead. Beside you, the miller mutters, "Is it too late to pretend to be injured?" You whisper back, "We're about to be injured. That counts, right?" He snorts a laugh, half humor, half despair. Someone behind you murmurs a prayer. Someone ahead clears their throat like they're about to give a speech, which feels wildly inappropriate. Your captain raises his damaged shield, points his sword toward the incoming wave, and yells, "Brace! Set spears!" His voice cracks slightly on the last word. You pretend not to hear it. Leadership is hard. You lower your stance, planting your feet in the mud, angling your spear forward just like he showed you yesterday. The shaft digs into the earth. The spearhead wavers. You inhale deeply and try to convince your muscles to behave. Your armor creaks, wet fabric clinging to your back. Historians still argue whether infantry truly held firm against cavalry, or if it usually devolved into a panic sprint within seconds. Judging by the tremble running through your line, the panic sprint theory suddenly feels very academically convincing. The enemy charges. The fog erupts. The sound changes first, hooves beating faster, sharper, closer. Then the shapes swell in size, turning into monstrous figures of metal and muscle. Horses snort clouds of steam. Lances tilt with murderous confidence. Riders howl something unintelligible, probably a mix of encouragement and "please don't fall off." You brace. Your shield. Your arm tenses. Your breath stops somewhere in your throat and refuses to move. The first rider hits 2 men down from you. It's not elegant. It's not heroic. It's physics. The lance connects with a shield, splintering it open with a crack loud enough to make your soul shiver. The man behind it staggers back, shouting. The horse crashes past him, ploughing a line through your formation. Mud sprays everywhere. Another rider slams into the baker's shield, knocking him to his knees, but somehow not breaking the baker's stubborn, dough-kneading arms. A spear near you finds a target hitting a horse's armor with a dull metallic thunk. It doesn't stop the animal, but it makes the rider curse. That's something. Small victories. Then a horse barrels toward you. Too fast, too heavy, too real. You plant harder, knuckles whitening as you angle your spear. Your heartbeat becomes a chaotic drum. The rider points his lance directly at your chest, but at the last possible moment, he jerks the reins. The horse swerves. Mud explodes up your left side. The rider's boots brush your shield, scraping the cracked wood. The lance misses your ribs by inches. Your entire torso vibrates from the near impact. You're still alive. Barely. And then the line behind you screams real, panicked terror this time. You risk a glance and see why. The cavalry didn't just hit your front. They circled. They're hitting from the side now. Your captain shouts something that sounds like, "Reform, reform." But reforming is difficult when half the men are stumbling, some are slipping, and a few look like they're trying to remember the exact steps of not dying today. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval commanders carried brightly coloured flags not just for rallying troops, but because terrified levies tended to instinctively run toward the most visually distinct object when confused. Today, thankfully, your side's banner is a bold red. Unfortunately, it's also currently being knocked sideways by a galloping horse. Another rider smashes into the right flank. A shield breaks. A man spins, mud flying from his boots. Your heart jumps again, your lungs burning from breaths you don't remember taking. The cavalry begins to peel away, regrouping for a third pass. Because of course they are. Your shield is shaking. Your legs are jelly. Your vision blurs with sweat and fog. The ground hums as the riders circle, preparing for the next angle, the next crack in the line, the next victim. The man beside you gasps. "We can't take another one." He's right. Your captain, knowing it too, finally shouts the words everyone is secretly waiting for. "Infantry. Forward." Not because charging is brave, not because you have an advantage, but because the best way to stop cavalry is to close the distance until the horses can't charge anymore. So you tighten what's left of your shield, lift your spear, swallow your fear, and begin moving forward toward the men on horseback who are also moving toward you. And the rumble of the earth grows louder. You move forward because you have to, not because you suddenly discovered courage, but because standing still means being turned into a human bowling pin by another cavalry pass. Your captain knows it. The line knows it. Even the horses probably know it. So your feet start moving, squishing through the mud, each step a mix of dread, momentum, and well, here we go, I guess. You advance, slowly, unevenly, like a flock of terrified metal geese. The fog is thinning now, burned away by rising sun and rising chaos. You can see shapes more clearly, enemy infantry forming up beyond the riders, shields locking, spears bristling like a porcupine having a bad day. This is the moment where the battle stops being distant and becomes painfully, sweat-drippingly personal. Your spear shakes in your hand. It feels too long, too unwieldy, too real. Training yesterday was nothing. Like this. The straw bale wasn't yelling. The straw bale didn't have a sword. And the straw bale definitely didn't look at you like it hoped you'd slip. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval battles were often described as pushes of pike, or presses of shields, with dense formations colliding in chaotic, grinding shoves. You're about to understand exactly why chroniclers used the word press so often. It's less about heroic solo duels and more, everyone leans on everyone else while hoping not to be stabbed. The ground slopes slightly downward. You feel yourself picking up speed because gravity has opinions about your day. Your shield arm aches, your shoulder burns, and your mind races through every regret you've ever had. Mostly choices involving volunteering, taxes, and trusting anyone who said this would be an easy skirmish. The enemy cavalry isn't gone. They're circling. You see riders in the corner of your vision repositioning for another strike. But your line is too close to the infantry now. The riders can't get a clean angle without ploughing into their own men. That's the whole point of your advance. Limit their movement, force them to back off. It's working. Probably. Hopefully. Historians still argue whether infantry tactics like this were coordinated brilliance or simply desperate improvisation by terrified peasants. Today, you're leaning heavily toward desperate improvisation. The infantry ahead of you is ready. Their shields form a wall, curved, wooden, painted with symbols that look far too cheerful for the occasion. Their spears jut out in a hedge of sharp, hungry points. Some men shout, some bang weapons against shields. Some stand perfectly silent, which is somehow worse. Your captain raises his sword and yells, "Close ranks!" And your formation tightens like a nervous accordion. Men bump shoulders. Shields overlap. You feel the carpenter's breath on your neck and the miller's trembling. Elbow, brush your arm. Personal space has left the chat entirely. You press forward. The enemy presses forward, and then everything collapses into motion. The first clash isn't elegant. It's not even clear. It's a tangle of bodies, shields slamming together with thud, 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 spears scraping, boots slipping, voices shouting in too many directions at once. Your spear jabs forward, connecting not with a person, but with another spear. The vibration shoots up your arm like you poked a live tree. The enemy infantry pushes as a unit, their weight slamming into your line. You stumble back half a step, but someone behind you shoves forward, keeping you upright. The smell hits you next: sweat, damp wool, wet earth, iron, and something sharp you can't name. Fear has a smell. You know that now. It's sour, heavy, unmistakable. Your helmet shifts slightly from the impact, tilting your view. You adjust it with your shoulder, but it just settles into yet another uncomfortable angle. You'd complain, but complaining requires breath, and your lungs are currently unionizing against you. Spears jab, shields grind, boots slide. The entire line feels like it's about to collapse. And then a breakthrough, a small one, barely a person wide, but a gap opens between two enemy shields. You thrust, not heroically, not gracefully, more like a startled duck snapping at breadcrumbs. But the spear tip finds something solid. A scrape of metal, a grunt, a retreating step. You don't know if you hurt someone or just annoyed them, but your section of the line surges half a step forward. The enemy pushes back. Your boots skid. Mud splashes onto your greaves. You hear someone scream, not in pain, but in frustration, like they've just lost a board game badly. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval infantry purposely shouted nonsense phrases to intimidate enemies. One chronicler swears a unit once charged, yelling, "Turnip soup." Today, you hear what sounds like, "Bite my goat," shouted somewhere to your right. You choose not to investigate. Your shield absorbs another hit, jarring your shoulder. You push back. It's not about defeating the person in front of you, it's about not letting them walk through you. The man next to you swings the flat of his spear like a club, hitting someone's helmet with a metallic clang that echoes painfully. Someone on the enemy side yelps. A spear skims past your thigh, close enough to tug fabric. Your heart performs a parkour routine inside your chest. Historians still argue whether soldiers could truly identify friend from foe in the chaos. Based on the fact that you almost elbowed your own miller out of pure panic, the scholarly debate remains wide open. The fog is nearly gone now, replaced with smoke you don't know from where. Maybe fire arrows finally found a target. Maybe someone set dry brush ablaze. Maybe the universe just likes adding dramatic ambience. Through the haze, you see a rider circling far behind. The infantry. Maybe preparing for another charge. Maybe waiting for an opening. Maybe lost. Honestly, it could be any of the above. Your shield smacks into another shield. Your spear tangles with another spear. Your lungs burn. Your arms shake. Your brain screams, "Don't stop, don't freeze, don't fall." And in the middle of that overwhelming, exhausting, terrifying clash, you realize, this isn't the deadly, cinematic duel you imagined. This is noise, pressure, confusion, heat, cold, fear, and too many people trying very hard not to die at the same time. And in that moment, muddy, breathless, heart-pounding, you understand, the clash isn't the hard part, it's the endurance. And you've barely begun. You lose your sense of direction almost instantly. One moment, you're certain you're pushing forward. The next, the line tilts sideways, bodies shifting, shields grinding past you in a way that makes absolutely no spatial sense. The battlefield stops being a wide, open field and becomes something much smaller, a cramped, chaotic hallway made of metal, mud, and people yelling things you can't decipher. Your eyes dart around, trying to find a landmark, a tree, a banner, a rock, anything. But the fog and smoke twist everything into shifting shapes. You turn your head slightly and immediately regret it. Your helmet slips down over one eye, giving you a half-blind, aggressively inconvenient view. You nudge it up with your shoulder, but it just slides back down like a stubborn toddler refusing to cooperate. A mainstream historical fact. Chroniclers often wrote that soldiers became lost within the press, unable to tell friend from foe or front from rear. You used to think that sounded exaggerated. Now, with someone's elbow in your ribs and another man's shield hitting your back, you realize those chroniclers might have been under-describing the experience. Your line shoves forward, then backward, then sideways. You stumble, catching yourself on the wound carpenter's shoulder. He doesn't even glance at you. He's too busy trying to keep his own shield angled properly while muttering a steady stream of soft curses. The miller behind you bumps into you again, this time apologizing in a surprisingly polite tone for a man currently trying not to die. The enemy presses in. You feel their weight through your shield. A slow, grinding push that forces you back half a step. Mud sucks at your boots. Your footing slips. You barely manage to keep upright by digging your heel into something solid. Hopefully mud. Hopefully not someone's fallen helmet. The fog clears just enough for you to see a banner ahead, your side's banner. A faded red cloth with a symbol that looks vaguely like a fish or possibly a badly drawn dragon. You turn toward it instinctively, thinking it'll help reorient you. Then someone slams into your left shoulder, spinning you halfway around. You flail, wildly correcting, just in time to avoid walking directly into your captain. He's shouting something, maybe an order, maybe encouragement, maybe a heartfelt request for the gods to send a break, but the words vanish in the noise. His beard shakes with the force of his yelling. That's all you get. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval soldiers tied small bells to their belts so they could hear each other in the chaos. It sounded ridiculous when you first heard it. Now, as you struggle to figure out where your own line is, you think bells might have been genius. You pivot back the direction you think you're supposed to face. The infantry in front of you press forward again, shields slamming into enemy shields with a crack. You lean into them, pushing with your shoulder, your legs trembling from the strain. Someone shouts, "Left." Several men turn right. Someone else shouts, "Back," and half the line surges forward. Historians still argue whether most battles devolved into this kind of spatial confusion or if it was more organized than we imagine. Judging by the fact that you currently have no idea where the horizon is, you're firmly on Team Chaos. Suddenly, a spear juts past your shield too close, too fast. You twist, feeling the wind of it scrape your sleeve. The man next to you deflects it with the butt of his weapon, shouting something triumphant. The enemy recoils, and the gap between lines momentarily widens. You seize the moment. You push forward. Your spear strikes something, maybe a shield, maybe armor, maybe a tree for all you know. The impact jolts your arms. You adjust, shove again, then lose your balance as someone bumps your back, knocking you forward into your own shield. Your helmet tilts again. Of course it does. You yank it back up, only for the rim to catch a little on your eyebrow. The pain flashes sharp but quick, leaving you blinking tears that immediately mix with sweat and smoke. Great. Now you're disoriented and watery-eyed. The line shifts again. Left, right, back, forward. Your entire, the world is motion without direction, noise without clarity, fear without focus. The fog creeps across the ground in thin streaks, weaving through legs and smoke like a lazy ghost. From somewhere ahead, a horse whinnies sharply, a reminder that the cavalry is still out there, circling like hungry birds waiting for an opening. Your captain waves his sword in a direction you're 60% sure is north. He shouts another order, this one sharp, cutting through the noise like an axe. You don't hear the words. You just respond to the urgency. Everyone shifts again. More bumping. More confusion. More, sorry, move. Watch it. That's my foot. This is no longer a battle line. It's a swirling, breathing organism made of exhausted humans trying to act like a cohesive unit. You catch a glimpse of blue paint on an enemy shield, a flash of red cloth, a battered helmet with a dent the size of a fist. Then they vanish again, as bodies jostle, as men shift, as the fog lowers, lifts like a tired stage curtain. Your breath comes short, your lungs burn, your shoulders ache, your arms feel like boiled rope. And still the line pushes, still the enemy pushes, still you're trapped inside this crushing, directionless press, one wrong step away from tumbling into the mud where you will be at best very stepped on. It hits you all at once. You have absolutely no idea where you are. Not on the field, not in the formation, not even relative to the sun. You're simply here, in the noise, the shove, the blur, and every direction feels like the wrong one. You blink hard, trying to steady your vision, but the world only gets murkier. Smoke drifts across the field in slow, lazy curls, mixing with the thinning fog until everything turns into a smeared watercolor painting. Grey, brown, steel, mud, and the occasional splash of someone's very unfortunate tunic. Your eyes sting, your throat burns. You can taste the air, an unpleasant blend of ash, dirt, and whatever your neighbor ate for breakfast. The battlefield is no longer just noisy and confusing. It's blinding. And blindness is terrifying in a place where everyone is swinging metal sticks. You raise your shield again, more by instinct than intention. The cracked wood feels soft in your hand, soaked, battered, tired. It almost sighs when you lift it. Or maybe that's just your wrist, which would very much like to resign from this job immediately. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval battlefields often turned into smoke-filled chaos because soldiers burned damp brush, wet hay, or old wood to disrupt enemy visibility. It wasn't always intentional, sometimes fires just happened, but the end result was the same. Everyone stumbling around half-blind, swinging at shadows. Today, you are intimately experiencing the half-blind part. You jab your spear forward, unsure whether you're hitting air, armor, or someone's unfortunate shield. It glances off something hard with a metallic ping, then slides downward into mud with a very sad slop. You yank it free and nearly fall backward from the resistance. The smoke thickens. You blink again harder this time and instantly regret it. Your eyes water uncontrollably. Tears stream down your face under the helmet, making your world even blurrier. You try wiping your cheek with your sleeve, but your armor scrapes awkwardly, and you end up just smearing mud on your visor slit. So now you're blind and dirty. Wonderful. The man beside you coughs loudly, doubling over slightly. The man on your other side sneezes into his helmet, then shouts, "That was a mistake. The most relatable thing anyone has said all day." A quirky tidbit? Some soldiers rubbed animal fat inside their helmets to keep smoke from sticking. All it really did was make their helmets greasy and smell like wet sheep. You would laugh, if laughing didn't require breathing, and breathing currently burns like inhaling pepper. You hear movement footsteps squelching through mud, armor clinking, a shield scraping against another. Someone shouts, "Push!" and bodies lean forward again. You shove your shoulder into your shield, eyes nearly shut, trusting the crowd to guide you. A shape appears suddenly right in front of you. A person, an enemy. You think, maybe, hard to tell, just a shadow, a shifting blob of motion through the haze. You thrust your spear. They raise a shield. The clash jangles up your arm. Your spear bounces upward, skimming off their rim. You jab again. They step sideways. Someone else slams into your back, sending you stumbling forward into your own attack. Your helmet tilts. Again. Of course it does. You grunt and elbow it upward with a frustrated jerk. The world returns, but not much clearer. The smoke is so thick now, you can barely make out silhouettes. You feel more than you see. Pressure on your shield. Impact against your shoulder. Mud sucking at your boots like it's trying to keep you as a souvenir. Another confusing jolt hits your side. You don't know whether it came from friend or foe. You spin halfway around and instantly lose your orientation again. North, south, forward, backward. Your inner compass has gone on strike. The battlefield is no longer lines or formations, it's clusters of bodies drifting in and out of visibility like ghosts. Somewhere nearby, someone drops a weapon with a clatter. Someone else shouts a warning. Someone else yells a name you don't recognize. You turn toward every sound, but all you see is smoke. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers truly saw anything during battles, or whether they mostly trusted noise and muscle memory. Right now, you'd bet your next several meals that most of them were just swinging at whatever felt like an enemy and hoping for the best. Suddenly, a spear lunges out of the murk toward your leg. You jump back, heart in your throat, shield dropping instinctively to protect your torso instead. The spear misses by inches, stabbing into the mud with a wet, ugly squish. You retaliate on pure instinct, thrusting forward. Your spear hits something soft, hard, you can't tell. A grunt, then silence. Your breathing comes in ragged bursts. Sweat pours down your face, mixing with tears and smoke, until everything feels hot and salty and miserable. Your captain appears in the haze, just his outline, sword raised, shield dented, beard now matching the battlefield's ash-grey aesthetic. He waves his blade, shouting something like, "Left flank push," but half the line goes right. You try turning left, immediately bumping into a man you don't recognize. His armor is the wrong color. His shield has a painted symbol you definitely don't want to see. Enemy. Definitely enemy. He swings. You block with your battered shield barely. The impact rattles your elbow. You jab your spear, but he steps back into the fog and vanishes like a magician with excellent timing. You turn, and turn again. Your vision swirls. Smoke stings your eyes until everything burns. And that's when it hits you. You're completely blind. Not just visually, spatially, strategically, existentially. You do not know where your enemies are. You do not know where your allies are. You do not know where the front line is, or if there even is a line anymore. You are just a single person in a cloud of noise and fear, clinging to a splintered shield and a muddy spear, trying to guess which direction won't immediately kill you. And there's nothing more terrifying than realizing that every direction feels equally wrong. You don't know how long you've been fighting, minutes, hours, half a lifetime. The smoke still burns your eyes, the fog still clings low to the ground, and the noise around you is a shapeless roar. But something strange starts to happen inside all that chaos. You fall into a rhythm, not a comfortable one, not a heroic one. More like a desperate survival loop. React, block, breathe, thrust, pull back, shuffle sideways, hope for the best. Your muscles begin moving on their own, as if they've stopped waiting for your brain's panic suggestions and decided, "We'll take it from here." Your spear jabs forward again, not to hit, not to kill, just to keep anyone from stepping too close. Your shield lifts, not smoothly, not elegantly, but reliably. You can't see well, you can barely hear, but your body learns the tempo of staying alive. A mainstream historical fact. Chronicles describe this exact phenomenon after the first, terrifying clash. Soldiers often fought in a kind of automatic haze, tired, half-blind, and overwhelmed. They relied on rhythm more than technique. The mind panics, the body repeats. You breathe in smoke, you cough, you push forward because everyone else pushes forward. Your shield thuds against another shield. Your spear slides past someone's arm. Your boot sinks half an inch deeper into the mud. You adjust, letting instinct steer you more than sight. A blurry figure charges at you from the side, just a silhouette barely visible through the haze. You react without thinking, raising your shield. The impact rings up your arm. The figure bounces back. You thrust blindly toward the shape, hitting something solid. The figure stumbles away, vanishing into the fog. You don't feel victorious. You feel startled and exhausted. Someone behind you mutters, keep moving, like a mantra. You echo it under your breath, not because it's comforting, but because it gives your mind something to focus on besides the rising panic. Your shield blocks another strike. Your spear flicks outward again, forward one step, back half a step, sideways. You're dancing badly, rhythmically, terrifiedly. The rhythm becomes your anchor. A quirky tidbit: some medieval fighters claimed battle had a heartbeat, a pulsing tempo from the stomping, clashing, grunting mass of bodies. You always thought that sounded poetic. Now, knee-deep in mud and sweat and terror, you can feel it. A thudding, uneven beat. A pulse. Yours? Theirs? The battlefield's? Hard to tell. All you know is that it keeps you moving. Then a sudden, sharp impact on your shield knocks you sideways. Your rhythm breaks. You stumble, nearly falling. You windmill your free arm, trying to stay upright. Someone slams into your back, pushing you forward again. You catch yourself on your spear. Your knee screams. Your ankle twists, but somehow holds. You're back in the line. Barely. Historians still argue whether medieval battles were more hit and recover chaos or slow, grinding endurance. In this moment, it's both. Chaos, then rhythm. Rhythm, then chaos. Over and over. You hear a horn through the haze, one long note that trembles like it's unsure of its own command. Not yours, not your side. The enemy is signaling something, maybe a shift, maybe a retreat. Maybe a flanking maneuver. Maybe a lunch break for all you know. Horns in battle are the medieval equivalent of someone shouting vague directions from another room. Your captain shouts something back purely out of stubbornness, since there is zero chance the hornblower can hear him. You rejoin the push. Forward, forward, block, jab, breathe, repeat. A man beside you, someone from your village, though you can't see, which laughs suddenly, a wild, breathless laugh. "If I die," he groans, "tell my wife I wanted a better breakfast." You snort despite yourself, nearly inhaling more smoke than air. Humor somehow survives even here. A tiny spark against all this mud and fear. Another shape appears ahead. This one more solid, an enemy soldier lunging toward you. His shield is painted blue with a crude animal design that looks like a lopsided goat. He swings. You raise your shield. The blow rattles your teeth. You jab your spear, hitting his shield this time. He stumbles. Someone from your line shoves past you, swinging a sword. The goat shield guy vanishes into the fog. Your rhythm returns. Not safe, not steady, but something. Forward. Block, push, breathe. The battlefield narrows in your mind until it's just the next movement, the next breath, the next shove. You're not thinking about the cavalry anymore. You're not thinking about victory. You're not thinking about surviving the day. You're thinking about surviving the next 3 seconds. Forward. Block. Push. Breathe. Smoke curls around your helmet. Sweat drips down your neck. Your arms ache with the dull, deep throb of early exhaustion. You understand now battles weren't won by the strongest or the bravest. They were won by the ones who simply didn't collapse first. And you're trying desperately not to be the one who collapses, because the rhythm keeps you alive. But it can't last forever. And you feel the breaking point coming. The rhythm keeps you alive until suddenly it doesn't. It breaks like a snapped bowstring the moment something strange happens. The enemy stops pushing. Not everywhere, not in some grand, dramatic way, just in one small patch of the line directly ahead of you. A pressure you've been leaning against for what feels like forever simply vanishes. Your shield lurches forward unexpectedly, nearly pulling you off balance. You stumble a step, catching yourself before face-planting into the mud. For a terrifying heartbeat, you think it's a trap. Then you see him, an enemy soldier, barely a few feet away, lowering his shield, lowering his weapon, backing up, hands open, breathing fast, surrendering. Your brain refuses to process it for a moment. You blink hard, convinced the smoke is tricking your eyes. Soldiers don't just stop, not in the middle of a press like this. But he's real, and he's scared. He mutters something you can't hear over the din. A plea, maybe a prayer, maybe, "I'm done, please don't stab me." He steps back with trembling legs, the blue paint on his shield smeared with soot. His sword tip droops. He looks desperately at your line, then at his own, then lifts his free hand higher in a universal "I quit" gesture. This is surreal, a mainstream historical fact. Battlefield surrenders did happen, though not always gracefully. Sometimes individuals simply dropped their weapons and hoped for mercy. Sometimes small groups fled mid-fight. Chroniclers rarely describe these moments in detail, perhaps because it didn't fit the heroic narrative, but they were real. And now you're watching one play out in slow motion. A quirky tidbit? Some soldiers believe dropping your sword tip first into the mud fed the earth and would earn forgiveness. You see a second enemy fighter do exactly that, stab his blade into the dirt and raise both hands, backing away like he smelled something awful. Your captain notices immediately. He shouts, "Hold! Hold!" which is medieval for, "Don't stab the guys who are giving up. We might need them alive later." Your line falters in place, half bewildered, half relieved. The pressure eases slightly along your section of the formation. But only your section. To your right, the fighting rages on, shields slamming, voices rising. To your left, someone screams in pain. Ahead of you, a strip of enemy infantry peeling away like fabric ripping. Your mind sparks with a confusing mix of emotions. Relief that fewer people are trying to kill you. Fear that this sudden gap might be a setup. Confusion because literally nothing about this day has gone the way you expected. The surrendering soldier steps further back, then turns and jogs toward his own rear line. No one pursues, mostly because no one has the strength or clarity to chase a man who's clearly done for the day. The miller beside you pants. What just happened? You don't answer. You can barely form thoughts. Your body is locked between wanting to sag in exhaustion and wanting to stay alert in case this is some bizarre trick. Historians still argue whether such breaks in formation were contagious, whether one surrender sparked others like a ripple. You watch it happen in real time. A second enemy steps back, then a third. Their shield wall wavers, sagging slightly in the middle. They're not running. They're not attacking. They're just hesitating. You and the men around you begin to breathe again, not deeply, not safely, but enough to stop the frantic, shallow gulping you've been doing since sunrise. Then someone from your side calls out, incredulous, "They're quitting." Immediately someone else shouts, "Don't chase them." And a third person yells, "I'm not chasing anyone. I'm barely standing." Your captain lifts his sword, pointing forward. "Hold position," he roars. "Don't break ranks." His voice cracks again, this time from exhaustion, not fear. You tighten your formation, spears lower, shields brace. But for the first time all day, no one pushes into your shield. No one jabs at your spear. No one tries to shove you backward. It's eerie, too quiet, too still. Your heartbeat loudens in your ears. Then, without warning, a shape bursts through the thinning smoke. A soldier charging full speed at you, screaming. You yelp, raising your shield. But he isn't aiming at you. He's running past you. Running away. Another follows, and another. The gap widens. Your captain's eyes widen. "Steady," he warns again. Because humanity has a long, proud tradition of turning running into "we should run too." And sure enough, your own line shifts uneasily, the men misinterpreting the retreat ahead as a possible ambush. You feel bodies pressing back into you, shields bumping, men muttering nervously. The carpenter whispers, Do we go forward or back?" You have no idea. No one does. This is the battlefield irony. The moment of least danger feels the most unstable. The smoke lifts slightly. You see enemy soldiers abandoning their position, sprinting toward a banner somewhere far behind them. Officers shout for them to return, waving spears, pointing, cursing, but the panic spreads like spilled ink. The enemy's center breaks, but the flanks hold, and that's somehow worse. Historians still debate whether partial routes caused more confusion than full retreats. Judging by the fact that your line is now a mixture of hope, bewilderment, and total panic, you'd vote yes. You finally exhale, your arms trembling. Enemy fighters are leaving the field. They're surrendering, retreating, giving up. But it's not over, not even close, because as the last of the retreating silhouettes fade into the smoke, a new sound rises. Drums, slow, steady, purposeful. Someone else is coming, and you realize with a sinking heart, this wasn't the end of the fight. It was only a pause. The drums roll in slowly at first, deep, steady, almost like a heartbeat you can feel through the mud. It's the kind of sound that doesn't just hit your ears. It settles into your bones, vibrating the air, shaking loose whatever tiny scraps of hope you gathered during that brief, surreal lull. You look toward the haze, half dreading, half expecting what comes next. The smoke shifts, the fog thins, and shapes begin to form. A new line of soldiers, fresh, organized, frighteningly calm, steps forward through the grey. Shields aligned, spears leveled. Their banner lifts above them, crisp despite the chaos, its colors sharp where everything else looks faded by fear and sweat. Your stomach lurches. The miller breathes. "Oh, come on," in the defeated tone of a man who just realized the universe isn't done bullying him. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval battles often came in waves, not one continuous clash. Fresh reserves could enter while the first ranks fell back. Armies used layers, front lines, second lines, sometimes even third. You, unfortunately, are now facing one of those dreaded second lines. Rested, ready, and not even slightly impressed by your exhaustion. Your captain sees it too. He curses quietly, but with heartfelt intensity, then lifts his sword. "Form up," he shouts, voice hoarse. "Tighten the line." Your line tightens, more or less. Men shuffle, straighten, lock shields. Some look dizzy. Some look lost. Some look like they'd give anything to swap places with the guy who just surrendered and jogged off into the mist. You swallow the knot of dread tightening in your throat. Because here's the truth. You're not ready. None of you are. Your shield is cracked. Your spear is mud-stained. Your vision blurs at the edges from smoke and tears and the beginnings of what might be a headache or might be your brain filing a complaint. But the new enemy line moves with intent. Slow steps. Unified formation. No panic. No hesitation. They're everything your battered group is not. Historians still argue whether reserve lines were always this disciplined or if chroniclers romanticized them. Judging by the precision in front of you, this feels very non-romantic and very, very real. Someone behind you mutters, "Maybe they're here to negotiate?" Another replies, "With spears? Sure. Great negotiators, spears." A third adds, "At least they're walking. The horses were worse." And honestly, that last guy has a point. The drums beat again, 3 slow pulses. Then silence. The enemy commander raises an arm. The entire line halts. The fog swirls around them like some dramatic stage effect, revealing just enough to make your heart race faster. You can see their faces now focused, determined, absolutely not in the mood for nonsense. Your captain lifts his shield and shouts, "Brace!" You brace. Barely. Your legs shake. Your shield arm trembles. Your spear feels heavier than it did 5 minutes ago, somehow both waterlogged and tired. The new line doesn't charge. They advance. Step by step. Deliberate. Controlled. Like a giant organism with one mind and one goal. Crush what remains of your formation. A quirky tidbit? Some medieval units trained to move in perfect synchronization not just for discipline, but to intimidate opponents with their unity. Seeing it up close now, you understand why chroniclers said it petrified lesser men. Your entire row involuntarily takes a step backward. Your captain roars, "Forward! Hold the line!" You force your foot down into the mud, anchoring yourself. The press of bodies behind you helps whether you like it or not. No one wants to be the first to fall back. Most aren't even sure which direction back is anymore. The enemy lowers their spears, and suddenly, with terrifying speed, they rush the last few steps, closing the distance in a single, unified surge. The impact hits like a wall collapsing. Your shield slams into theirs with a jarring force that rattles your teeth. You shove back, boots digging into sucking mud. The air fills with the sharp clatter of wood against wood, metal clicking, men shouting. Your tired arms strain. Your wrists scream. Your spear is pinned between shields. You yank it free, just as a new wave of pressure slams into your section. Someone to your right falls, dragging 2 other men sideways. Panic ripples down the line. Your captain shouts desperately, "Reform! Reform the ranks!" But the noise swallows his words. The enemy pushes harder. Your line bends, not breaks. Not yet. But you feel the give like a shield wall made of wet rope. You try to focus, breathe, react, block, push, step, survive. But this is different from before. The first clash was frantic, chaotic. This one is controlled, relentless, suffocating. You thrust your spear between 2 shields. It scrapes armor. The enemy recoils 1/2 inch. It's not much. It's something. The carpenter beside you yells, "They're pushing the flank." The miller responds, "Which flank?" The carpenter, "Yes." Your shield shakes violently as a spear scrapes down its front, catching briefly in the cracked wood. You wrench it free, nearly losing your balance. You're sweating so much, the inside of your helmet feels like a bathtub. Your arms burn. Your legs ache. Your lungs rasp. And still the enemy pushes. Step by step, shield by shield. They're not trying to overwhelm you with chaos. They're trying to suffocate you with discipline. The banner above their line dips and rises in controlled rhythm. Yours wobbles like a drunken seagull. The press grows tighter. Your body screams. Your captain shouts the same command again. "Hold!" As if shouting louder will convince your muscles not to turn into melted wax. Another surge. Your shield slips. Just an inch, but enough. Enough for the man in front of you to slip a spear forward, grazing your upper arm. Your armor catches most of it, but the impact shocks you numb. You gasp. You stumble. The line buckles. Someone behind you pushes forward, trying to fill the gap. Someone else shouts, "They're breaking us!" Your captain roars, "No, they're not." They absolutely are. Your shield tilts. Your spear shakes. Your vision tunnels. And in the middle of all that noise and pressure, you realize you're losing ground. Not because you're weak. Not because you're afraid. But because these men are fresh. And you're fighting on borrowed breath. The drums pulse again. Closer. Stronger. Unavoidable. You brace for the next surge and pray your legs remember how to stand. You don't remember how you end up near the riverbank, only that the ground beneath your feet changes without warning. One moment you're pushing against the enemy's shield wall, lungs heaving, vision tunneling, and the next, your boot slams into softer, wetter earth and nearly slips out from under you. Your shield jerks downward. Your spear wobbles. You stagger, flailing for balance because the battlefield has tilted under you, subtly but decisively. A slope, a shallow drop, a treacherous patch of mud that leads toward a narrow, winding river you didn't even know was there this morning. A mainstream historical fact, many medieval battles drifted by accident. Soldiers got pushed downhill, pulled sideways, herded toward natural obstacles. Riverbanks were especially dangerous, slippery footing, poor visibility, and no room to maneuver. The chroniclers wrote about men drowning with their helmets still on. Today, that feels uncomfortably possible. Your captain shouts, "Watch the ground! Watch your footing!" But his voice cracks with urgency. He's sliding too, just a little wobble, but enough to show you he isn't immune to the slickness. You try anchoring yourself, planting the butt of your spear deeper into the mud. It sinks too easily. When you pull it back, up, it comes free with a wet, sucking sound that feels like a bad omen. The river glints through the fog, a thin, curving ribbon of grey water that reflects light like a blade. Its banks slope gently but dangerously, covered in wet grass and churned mud from where animals and unlucky soldiers have passed. Behind you, the line is bending, literally shifting toward the river as the enemy presses forward. A ripple of bodies pushes you closer to the edge. Someone behind you shouts, "We're sliding. Keep left. Left." Several men immediately drift right. You try to shift left, but your feet skid. The mud here is a traitor. Slick, deceptive, absolutely uninterested in supporting your survival goals. The enemy sees the terrain advantage and tightens their formation, pushing with renewed force. The ground under your shield feels like jelly. Your balance wobbles. Your breath catches. Then, without warning, the soldier to your left slips completely. One moment he's fighting. Shield raised. The next, his boot skates out from under him, and he goes down hard, sliding toward the river with a startled yelp. You reach out instinctively, grabbing the back of his gambeson with your free hand. It yanks your arm almost out of its socket. Your shield dips. An enemy spear grazes the front edge as you struggle to keep your friend from sliding into the water. "Pull him," someone shouts. "Pull him yourself," you shout back, grunting with effort. The miller lunges in to help, grabbing the man's arm. Together, you haul him upright, boots sinking deep into the mud as you brace against gravity, momentum, and the universe's general dislike for you today. He scrambles to his feet, panting. "Thank you," he gasps. "No problem," you wheeze. "Try not to fall into any rivers. It's bad for morale." A quirky tidbit. Some medieval armies genuinely believed river spirits dragged soldiers under during battle. You always thought that sounded like folklore. Now, staring at the dark swirl of water only a few feet away, you're less certain. The enemy presses again. Your shield rattles. Your heels skid. Your entire body tilts backward for a terrifying instant. You thrust the spear forward, not with precision, but with desperation. It hits a shield. The shock travels up your arms. You push again. The enemy shoves back. Your boots slide another inch toward the water. Someone slips behind you, falls, grabs your leg to steady themselves, and nearly drags you down with them. You stumble sideways, cursing as your spear swings wide and nearly hits the miller. Your captain screams, "Keep the line off the bank, counter-push." But counter-pushing is hard when the ground is basically medieval soap. The river scents the air, cold, earthy, metallic. You can hear it now, the soft rush of moving water, teasing, beckoning, promising a quick cold bath that will absolutely end badly. You tighten your grip on your shield and brace harder. The enemy pushes. Again. Your line bends. Your left boot slips half an inch. Your right boot sinks deeper. Your stomach flips. Two men in front of you lose their footing and slide backward, crashing into you. You gasp, shoved closer to the river. The water feels like it's breathing on your ankles. You force yourself forward, step by struggling step, spear jabbing, shield braced, lungs burning. Historians still argue whether riverbank clashes were intentional, tactical maneuvers, or chaotic accidents. Based on the sheer panic in your captain's eyes, today's version is definitely an accident. A sword swings at you from the right, more a blur than a threat. You raise your shield just in time. The impact jolts you sideways again. Mud splashes up your legs. You grunt, forcing yourself back upright. The fog begins to lift fully now, revealing the river's twisting path. It curves behind your lines like a snake, waiting for someone to slip into its jaws. Your captain shouts again, "Push them away! From the water!" Several soldiers scream back, "We're trying!" The enemy's shield wall meets yours with another dull, brutal smash. Your feet slide, your heart jerks, your balance teeters. And for one horrifying moment, you feel yourself leaning toward the river. Too far, too fast, unable to stop. But the carpenter beside you braces his shoulder under yours, shoving you upright with a grunt. "Don't fall," he barks. "We need you." You nod, breathless, grateful beyond words. Together, you shove back. Hard. The line stabilizes barely. The river gurgles, disappointed. And just as you start to catch your breath, just as you begin to think you might survive this narrow nightmare, a horn sounds from the enemy line. Not a retreat horn, a charge horn. They're not done with you. Not here. Not on this treacherous ground. The river waits, and the battle refuses to let you leave its edge. You don't get a second to breathe before the horn call twists the entire battlefield back into motion. The enemy line, which had been steadily pressing you toward the river, tightens formation with unsettling precision, shields snapping into alignment, spears leveling in a practiced motion that makes your exhausted limbs want to file a formal complaint. Your captain sees it too. He swears loudly, creatively, and then does something you absolutely did not expect. He turns, not to retreat, to go back in. "Forward!" he shouts, voice cracking but resolute. "We take the ground back. Move!" You stare at him like he has asked you to juggle anvils. Move forward? Into that? On this slippery slope? With legs that feel like boiled noodles and a shield that's held together by sheer stubbornness? But then, the enemy moves. A surge, clean, unified, terrifying. And suddenly moving forward doesn't seem like bravery. It seems like survival. Because if you give them even one more shove, even one more inch, the river behind you stops being a problem and becomes a grave. So you step forward, one foot, then the other. Your boots slide but hold, barely. You raise your shield, feeling its cracked wood tremble. Your spear wavers in your hand like it knows what's coming and would like to politely opt out. The line around you tightens. Men grunt, a few groan. One mutters, "If I fall in the river, tell my wife I died heroically on land." You snort despite yourself, nearly choking on river-chilled air. You push up the slippery bank just as the enemy charges down toward it. It's like meeting a wave head-on. Their shields smash into yours with brutal force, amplified by gravity. The impact rattles all the way down your spine. You gasp, heels skidding backward, but the man behind you shoves forward, anchoring you. "Don't slip," someone screams. "We know," several voices shout back. A mainstream historical fact, uphill attacks were notoriously brutal, but downhill charges were deceptively risky. A line moving too fast could lose formation, slip, or collide unevenly. You don't learn that from a book today. You learn it from the way the enemy's front rank hits your line, slightly crooked, one side half a step ahead of the other. Your captain sees the weakness instantly. "Left, flank push," he roars. You push. Everyone pushes. Your shield slams forward. Your spear jabs. Mud flies. Your boots skid. But the moment their line stutters, your body suddenly feels something it hasn't felt all day. Momentum. You seize it like a lifeline. The enemy tries regrouping. Their shields jerk sideways. Spears realign, but the slope betrays them. Several men slip, boots sliding on slick mud. One tumbles forward entirely, crashing into his own line. Your row surges half a step ahead. Your heart jumps. You're still terrified, but there's a spark now. A flicker of, we might actually turn this around. Then a sword swings toward your face. You barely get your shield up in time. The blade clangs off the rim, jerking your arm downward. You thrust your spear without aiming, just moving where instinct tells you. It hits metal. You feel the shock jolt your wrist. A shape lunges out of the fog to your right, an enemy trying to flank. You pivot and slam your shield into him. Hard, he staggers. You jab again. Not heroic, not pretty, just survival. Then the mud betrays you. Your right boot slides sideways. Your body tilts. Your spear dips. You flail for balance, and the miller grabs your arm, yanking you upright with surprising strength. I told you, he pants. You're not falling on my shift. You nod breathlessly. Let's try not to make shifts a thing. Historians still argue whether battlefield camaraderie emerges from shared danger or sheer desperation. Today, you're convinced it's both. These men who were just your neighbors this morning are now the only reason you're still breathing. The enemy line tries another shove. You shove back. The river murmurs behind you, like a warning. A shield slams into yours. A spear scrapes your arm. A sword clangs off the miller's helmet, and he swears loud enough to startle a goose somewhere upstream. The press tightens. Your vision narrows. Your lungs burn. Your legs tremble, but you hold. Together, your line pushes the enemy back up the slope, inch by agonizing inch. For the first time in hours, your feet move over firmer ground, not safety, but not mud. You plant your boots harder, grip your spear tighter, teeth clenched. Your captain shouts, "Drive them back!" And somehow, you do. The enemy line wavers. A few fall back. A shield drops. A spear slips. And in that tiny fracture, in that brief crack of chaos, your side surges forward again. Your shield slams into theirs. Your spear thrusts. Your boots grip the earth. And you realize you're no longer fighting just to survive. You're fighting to reclaim the field. The river's danger fades behind you. The slope levels. The ground solidifies. And for the first time today, you're moving forward. Not running, not retreating, not sliding, just moving, steadily, painfully, but undeniably forward. And the enemy? They feel it. Their hesitation spreads. Their formation loosens. Your captain lifts his sword high, voice breaking with raw exhaustion and raw hope. This is our ground. Take it back. And you do. Step by step. Breath by burning breath. Shield against shield. Spear against spear. Until the river is behind you, and the battlefield opens ahead. You feel it before you see it, the shift in the air, the subtle change in the noise, the strange ripple of uncertainty moving through both lines. It starts at the edge of your awareness, like a cold fingertip tracing the back of your neck. Something just changed. Something big. Your captain senses it too. He pauses mid-swing, glancing upward, then forward, then toward the center of the field where the fog has finally thinned enough to reveal shapes clearly. You follow his gaze, chest heaving, breath burning. And that's when you see it. High above the chaos tattered, battered, yet unmistakable, the enemy's banner dips. Just a little, then a little more, then all the way. It doesn't fall dramatically like in the movies. No slow-motion collapse, no fiery explosion. It just sinks, wobbles, then droops sideways as if the pole itself has lost the will to stand. The enemy banner has fallen. Your breath catches. The carpenter gasps. Are they? The miller whispers. That's their standard. They're done, right? A mainstream historical fact. Medieval banners were everything. They marked command locations, rallied troops, signaled strength, and held formations together. When a banner fell, soldiers didn't just lose a flag, they lost direction, confidence, and sometimes the only person who knew what the plan was. And that's exactly what happens now. A ripple of panic runs through the enemy's ranks. You see helmets turning, shields shifting, spears wavering, officers shouting wildly, trying to rally, trying to signal, trying to pretend everything is still okay. It's not. Not for them. Because a fallen banner means something primal, something deep in the bones of every soldier on the field. The heart of the army has cracked, and where there's a crack, everything starts breaking. Historians still argue whether soldiers truly panicked at the fall of a banner or whether chroniclers exaggerated the symbolism. But watching it, now seeing the fear twist across the enemy line, you decide the chroniclers were absolutely right. That banner wasn't just cloth, it was their confidence. And it's gone. Your captain sees the shock spreading and acts instantly. "Forward!" he roars, voice hoarse but fierce. "They're breaking! Push! You want to push. You want to surge forward with triumphant adrenaline. You want to feel victory. But your legs, your arms, your everything. Exhausted. You're running on fumes, hope, and sheer stubbornness. Every step feels like wading through wet sand. Your shield feels like a giant, angry loaf of bread strapped to your arm. Your spear feels heavier than an entire horse. Still you move, because the enemy is wavering, retreating in small chunks, like a rope fraying thread by thread. Some of them fall back in panic. Some retreat with reluctant discipline. Some just stand there, staring at the fallen banner, as if wishing it would magically right itself. It doesn't. A soldier in front of you drops his shield entirely. Another turns and runs. A third simply steps backward, shaking his head slowly. Surrender spreads through the line not all at once, not cleanly, but in lurches. Then the right flank collapses, completely. Your captain sees it and shouts the words you never thought you'd hear from a man who looked ready to give up an hour ago. "We have them. Drive." Your line stumbles forward, unsteady but determined. Shields slam into retreating backs. Spears jab at shields that withdraw too slowly. Mud churns under frantic boots. The enemy scrambles, slips, retreats. You push forward, breath ragged, heart pounding, vision tunneling from exhaustion. The battlefield starts opening in front of you. Smoke thins, fog lifts. Men run, but not your men. Theirs. And for the first time today, you're no longer reacting. You're pursuing. You advance 5 steps, tripping over uneven ground. Your shield shakes in your grip, nearly slipping from sweaty fingers. You push again, legs screaming, lungs begging for mercy. The banner lies crumpled on the ground, its pole snapped, its cloth smeared with mud and footprints. A symbol of authority crushed under the weight of battle. A soldier near you stops to point. "There! They're pulling back!" Another shouts. "Don't lose formation!" A third wheezes. "I can't feel my feet, does that matter?" You press forward anyway. The enemy's retreat speeds up, turning into something between an orderly withdrawal and a desperate scramble. Panic moves through their ranks like wind through tall grass. Your captain raises his sword again, shaking, dented, exhausted, but still held high. "This is the turning," he cries. "Hold the line and drive." Your line shouts back a ragged, uneven sound, but powerful in its sincerity. You shove forward, your shield slamming against another's back, your spear thrusting toward an armor gap. Men break around you. Some surrender. Some flee. Some simply let their weapons fall. And somewhere inside the adrenaline, inside the fatigue, inside the noise, you feel something unexpected. Relief. Not joy. Not triumph. Just a fragile, trembling relief that the tide has finally shifted. But relief is dangerous, because retreating enemies still have weapons, and cornered men can still fight. And as the line breaks, and you push deeper, you realize the truth. The battle isn't over. Not yet. Not until you make it through whatever comes next, and survive the collapse. Word count, 1012. The screaming fades first. Not because the field suddenly becomes safe or quiet, but because your ears have taken in so much noise that they simply stop registering the sharpest parts. What's left is a dull roar, the distant clash of steel, the ragged shouts of frightened men, the faint echo of retreating footsteps. The chaotic orchestra of battle softens into something muted, muffled, almost hollow. The fog thins for good now, burning away under a pale, exhausted sun. And in the strange light that follows, the battlefield changes. The frantic motion slows. The shapes around you stop lunging, stop charging, stop pressing. And then, like someone has suddenly cut the strings, everything falls still. Not entirely, not safely, but enough. Enough for the first quiet to slip in. You stand among the survivors, your shield hanging limp at your side, your spear dragging its muddy tip through the churned earth, your chest rising and falling with painful, uneven breaths. Your legs tremble, your arms ache, your mouth tastes like metal and dirt. You feel hollowed out, scraped clean by adrenaline and terror. And yet, you're still here. Somehow, the silence that settles isn't peaceful. It's eerie, heavy. A blanket thrown over a room still full of ghosts. A weird stillness hangs over the field, broken only by the occasional cough, groan, or clatter of a dropped weapon. A mainstream historical fact. Chroniclers often describe the aftermath of battle as a great quiet or an unnatural calm, noting how the sudden silence felt more shocking than the fighting itself. You feel that truth now. The noise was terrifying, but the quiet is worse. You glance around. Shapes move slowly through the haze, men from your side, dazed and staggering, looking for their captains, their friends, their breath. Some lean on their spears like walking sticks. Some sit heavily on the ground, helmets in their hands, steam rising from sweat-drenched hair. Some wander in circles as if the fight rattled loose their sense of direction permanently. One soldier, a young farmhand you vaguely recognize, just stands there staring at his shield, not crying, not shaking, just staring at it like he's surprised it's still attached to his arm. You know the feeling. The enemy? They're mostly gone, fled or surrendered or collapsed somewhere in the mud. A few stragglers run in the distance, their silhouettes shrinking over the ridge. No one follows. No one has the strength, and no one has the desire. Your spear tip slips into the mud again. You let it rest there, your hand finally unclenching. Your fingers ache, as if releasing the weapon took more effort than holding it ever did. Smoke lingers in the air as thin ribbons drifting from smouldering patches of brush. The smell of burned wood mixes with the sharp tang of sweat, metal, wet earth, and something else. Something you try not to identify too closely. Your captain stands a little ways off, doubled over with his hands braced on his knees. His armor dented, his shield barely recognizable, his beard soaked with sweat and God knows what else. When he looks up, his eyes meet yours, and in them you see exhaustion older than the morning. But he nods, just once. And somehow, that tiny nod means everything. You survived the turning point. You held when the line bent. You didn't fall in the river. You didn't run. The carpenter limps up, beside you, wiping soot off his cheek. "Is it over?" he asks quietly. The miller, slumped on a nearby rock, answers before you can, "I think." The worst part is, historians still argue whether battles truly ended suddenly, or if the psychological shock simply made everything feel abrupt. But this moment, this shuddering, fragile calm, feels exactly like the kind of end they wrote about. Not final, not complete, just a stop, a pause, a breath the world has been holding finally released. Somewhere behind you, a soldier drops to his knees and begins laughing hysterical, relieved, exhausted laughter. The kind that comes only after fear has squeezed every last tear and scream out of a person. A few men join him, not out of humor, but out of shared survival. You look down at your shield. It's cracked through the center, mud-caked, feathered with splinters, and bent out of shape. It shouldn't still be intact. You press your hand to it gently, almost grateful. You didn't respect it this morning. Now, you might name it after dinner. The battlefield is full of strange quiet now, punctuated by soft moans, tired breaths, and rustling armor. Men move slowly, carefully, like sleepwalkers in a dream they want desperately to wake from. Your heart still pounds, but softer now. Steadier. Real. You survived the fight, but the aftermath? That part is just beginning. You begin walking without really deciding to. Your feet just move. Slow, uncertain steps through mud that squelches under every shift of weight. Your spear becomes a walking stick. Your shield drags behind your leg like a tired pet. The fog that once hid armies now reveals the aftermath in uncomfortable detail. You search for familiar faces. That's the instinct older than strategy, older than training. Find your people. Find your circle. Make sure the world didn't steal them from you in the smoke and shouting. The battlefield is no longer a place of motion. It's a place of shapes, bodies slumped, weapons scattered, bent grass where shields pressed down, churned earth in chaotic patterns. The kind of landscape that feels unreal because you're not sure you're ready to believe you were inside it only minutes ago. A mainstream historical fact. After battles, medieval soldiers often spent hours looking for their comrades, sometimes calling names, sometimes lifting helmets, sometimes checking faces one by one. It wasn't just camaraderie. It was the only way to understand who was left to rebuild life with. And now, you're part of that grim, uncertain process. You step over a broken spear haft, over a dropped boot, over a shield whose emblem has been scraped away entirely. You kneel briefly beside a man whose helmet is dented inward. He's breathing barely. You squeeze his shoulder. He doesn't wake, but the rise and fall of his chest is enough to send a ripple of relief through your ribs. The carpenter comes up behind you, limping. His helmet is crooked. His expression is hollow. "Seen Tom?" he asks quietly. You shake your head. You haven't. He nods once, the kind of nod that's half gratitude and half dread, then wanders away to check another cluster of bodies. You keep searching. The river burbles softly nearby, a gentle sound at odds with everything else. Birds, those traitors, have begun chirping again, as if the world didn't just try to tear itself apart. The sun climbs lazily over the ridge, warming the mist into a thin golden glow. You find the miller sitting heavily on a rock, staring at his hands. He looks up when you approach. "Found my cousin," he murmurs. "Is he?" "Alive," the miller says, with a half-hearted smile. "But he won't be running the mill for a while." You exhale a long, shaky breath. Walking on, you come across a cluster of enemy soldiers, sitting with their hands raised or heads bowed prisoners now. Some look fearful, some look relieved. One looks simply exhausted, staring at the river like it betrayed him. A quirky tidbit. Medieval armies sometimes treated injured prisoners with surprising compassion once the fight was over. A wounded man was just another human in pain. You see the truth of that now, as one of your fellow villagers wraps a torn cloth around an enemy's arm. Your path leads you through the remains of the forested edge of the field. Here, the smoke is thinner, the air cleaner. Sunlight dapples across discarded helmets and fallen branches. You spot a leather pouch lying open near a tree. Its contents spilled dried beans, a wooden spoon, a little carving of a dog. Someone's life, scattered, then a voice, weak, barely audible. "Over here." You snap toward the sound. Someone is lying half hidden in the tall grass. You hurry over, kneeling beside him. It's the young farmhand whose shield you saw earlier. His helmet is missing. A trickle of blood runs down his temple. "You okay?" you ask softly. He blinks up at you. "Think so," he murmurs. "Lost my spear, lost my helmet, lost my lunch too." You chuckle softly. "You fought hard." "I fought something," he says. "Not sure what. Didn't see much." Historians still argue whether soldiers remembered battles clearly or if the shock blurred everything. Hearing him speak, you understand it's probably the latter. You help him sit up. He groans but manages it. You stand scanning the field again. Bodies, gear, fragments of shields, strips of torn fabric, helmets lying at odd angles, reflecting patches of sky. Everywhere you look, the ground is marked by struggle. But the silence is no longer horrifying. It's just sad, honest, real. A few paces away, you spot a familiar crest on a shield won from your village. You hurry over, lifting it with trembling fingers. The body beneath stirs, groans, then rolls onto his side. "Easy," you whisper. "It's over." He squints at you. "We win?" "I think so." He nods slowly, then mutters, "Good. Needed a win today." You smile faintly. Your legs ache as you move again. Your shoulders ache. Your ribs ache. Everything aches. But you keep searching. Because this is what comes after the end, the quiet work of finding those who made it through. After a long, painful circuit of the field, the captain finally calls out, "Gather in. Form up. Let's count who's left." The order echoes softly, not like a command, but like a weary suggestion. You look around one last time, scanning the field for a face, a voice, a shape you might have missed. You find some, you don't find others. And your heart carries both weights. When you finally turn back toward the captain, your walk is slow but sure. The worst is behind you. But the memory of it, still scattered across the field, waiting to follow you home. By the time you make it back to what passes for camp, the sun has slipped low, turning the sky into a pale smear of orange, pink, and grey. The world feels washed out, colours dulled, sounds softened, edges rounded. Even your footsteps seem quieter now, as if the ground is too tired to echo them. Small fires crackle here and there, but none of them roar. Their timid flames, little circles of warmth meant more for comfort than cooking. Around them sit men who look like carved silhouettes, shoulders slumped, heads bowed, hands trembling from exhaustion they can't hide anymore. You join them almost automatically, sinking onto a patch of flattened grass beside a few familiar faces. Someone hands you a chunk of bread. You don't ask who, you don't ask why. You just take it and chew slowly, barely tasting it. Your mouth still tastes like fear and smoke. A mainstream historical fact. After battles, medieval soldiers often spent evenings in stunned silence. Chroniclers described shaking hands, low voices, and the staring of tired eyes. You're living that now. The air around you is full of soft, fragile breaths, men trying to remind their own bodies they are still alive. The carpenter breaks the silence first. "My hands won't stop shaking," he mutters, staring at them like they belong to someone else. He holds them up. They tremble visibly, fingers twitching. The miller nods slowly. "Mine too. It's normal, right?" "Normal-ish," you say, though you have no idea. Your own hands tremble subtly, the aftershocks of adrenaline still flickering through your muscles like fading sparks. Someone pokes at the fire with a stick, sending embers drifting into the night. A few men flinch at the movement, not dramatically, just involuntarily, a quick tightening of shoulders. The sound of cracking wood still feels too much like the sound of cracking shields. A quirky tidbit: in some medieval armies, men whispered jokes or superstitions after battles, because laughter drove away the spirits of fear. As ridiculous as it sounds, you see the logic now. Fear clings to you, sticky and persistent, unless you shake it loose. "Did anyone see me fall on my face?" Someone near the fire asks suddenly. Several men raise their hands. "Fantastic," he groans. There's a ripple of tired laughter, not joyous, but grateful. Small jokes feel like tiny rafts floating on a dark, churning ocean. Another man, armor-dented and hair-singed, sighs deeply. "I swear I saw my life flash before my eyes. And honestly, it was boring. I need new hobbies." More laughter, thin but real. Your captain limps into the circle, dropping heavily onto a nearby log. He's still wearing half his armor, too tired to remove it, too stubborn to admit it hurts. He rubs his temples with soot-stained fingers. "Good work today," he murmurs. No one responds. Not because they disagree, but because they're too tired to process praise. The fire pops. A few men flinch again. The captain sighs, softer this time. "You held the line," he continues, more to himself than anyone else. "We held the line." You lean forward, elbows on your knees, staring into the embers. The flames blur, then sharpen, then blur again, as your eyes struggle to stay focused. Your body feels heavier than you've ever felt it, every limb weighted with exhaustion, every joint singing a quiet complaint. Somewhere nearby, someone starts humming a low, tuneless melody. Not a song, exactly a sound between a lullaby and a prayer. It spreads softly, gently. A few others join without even meaning to, their voices weaving into something fragile but comforting. The sky darkens further. Stars appear, faint pinpricks scattered across the fading dusk. The night breeze brushes against your face, cool but not cold. You breathe it in, grateful for a smell that isn't mud, sweat, or smoke. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers slept after battles or lay awake, trembling. Judging by the camp right now, it's both. Some men sit staring into nothing. Some lie flat on the ground, asleep before their heads even settle. Some pace slowly, afraid to be still. You wrap your arms around yourself, drawing in the last bits of warmth from the fire. Your hands tremble less now, just faint quivers, like your body hasn't fully decided if it's safe yet. A friend from your village drops beside you, handing you a water skin. You drink, then hand it back. You think we did? Enough today, he asks quietly. You look into the fire, watching a log collapse into glowing ash. I think we survived, you say. For today, that's enough. He nods, not joyfully, not confidently, just honestly. The night deepens. The fire pops. The breeze softens. And surrounded by men who share your exhaustion, your fear, your relief, you finally let your shoulders loosen. Just a little. Just enough. Because for the first time since dawn, the battlefield isn't chasing you anymore. The night grows colder, but not sharply, so more like a gentle reminder that the world continues, indifferent to the battles fought upon it. You rise slowly from the fire, legs stiff, back aching, armor creaking like an old door begging for oil. The others murmur good nights or just grunt softly, too worn to form full words. You give them a tired nod and step away from the glow of the camp. The path home isn't a real path at all, just a direction your captain vaguely waved toward as he dismissed the survivors for the night. Get some rest, he'd said. We march at sunrise. A cruel promise, but at least the dark hides his sincerity. You walk, and limp, and wince, and walk some more. The air smells cleaner away from the fires. Dew clings to the grass, the kind that sparkles beautifully in moonlight but soaks your boots instantly. Your spear is slung over your shoulder now, its weight less oppressive than earlier, almost reassuring. Your shield hangs from your fingers, bumping your leg rhythmically, each tap a reminder that it somehow survived with you. A mainstream historical fact. After battles, soldiers often walked home or back to camp in uneven, scattered groups, each man trapped in his own thoughts, trying to untangle the snarled mess of survival and memory. Tonight, you feel that deeply. The ground is quiet. Your mind is loud. You follow a small group at a distance, familiar silhouettes against the night sky. They don't speak. You don't either. Words feel like stepping stones you're too tired to place. The moon rises higher, pale and soft, illuminating the rippling grass and distant treetops. The fog has retreated completely now, leaving behind only its memory in your lungs. You breathe easier than you have all day. As you reach the outskirts of camp, you spot your village wagon, a rickety old thing with one loose wheel and a tarp tied badly along one side. You lean your shield against it and sit on the edge, letting your legs dangle. Your feet throb. Your shoulders ache. Your head feels heavy. But for the first time today, the world is still. The miller appears a moment later, dropping onto the grass beside you with a grunt. Can't believe we're alive, he mutters. Me neither, you admit. Feels wrong. It does. Historians still argue whether soldiers felt relief or guilt after surviving battles. You suspect it was both. You feel it now, the strange, quiet ache of being spared when others weren't. A hollow place behind your ribs that whispers names you didn't see among the survivors. The carpenter joins you next, lowering himself down slowly. Think we'll dream about today? He asks. You swallow. Probably. Think we'll ever stop? You don't answer. None of you do. The breeze picks up, carrying the soft rustle of grass and distant murmurs from camp. Someone singing quietly, a low, wavering tune that sounds almost like a lullaby. The notes drift through the night, calm and haunting at once. You lean back against the wagon, closing your eyes for a moment. The darkness behind your eyelids is warm, gentle, unthreatening. You can still feel the weight of your shield hand trembling faintly. You can still feel the phantom vibration of shields slamming, the echo of horns, the ground's rumble beneath charging hooves. But you also feel the night's softness. You feel the air cooling your skin. You feel alive. You open your eyes slowly. The stars shimmer overhead, cold, distant, silent. They watch the battle without flinching. They watch your exhaustion without judgment. The miller clears his throat. When we get home, first thing I'm doing is sleeping for a week. The carpenter snorts. Wake me when it's lunchtime after that week. You chuckle weakly. I'm eating first, then sleeping. They laugh, tired, thin, but real. It warms the cold in your chest. Another group walks past, armor clinking, softly, faces slack with exhaustion. A few give small nods, acknowledgement, respect, solidarity in surviving something none of you were prepared for. The captain walks by too, without armor now, looking 20 years older. He gives you a nod, heavy, grateful. You nod back. The night deepens. The camp quiets. The firelight dims. The world grows smaller, gentler. You look toward the dark horizon, where the river glints faintly under the moonlight, peaceful now, as if it wasn't trying to drown half your unit earlier. The field beyond it is just a field again. The danger has retreated. The silence has reclaimed its place. You inhale deeply, and finally let the weight settle. You survived. And though tomorrow will bring its own trials, tonight belongs to rest. And the long walk back home continues step by step, breath by breath, through the quiet aftermath of a day that felt like a lifetime. The night has fully settled now, soft and steady, pressing gently against the edges of the camp like a long exhale. The last fires have burned low, glowing in muted orange pools that flicker and fade without urgency. The world feels slower here, quieter, as though even the air has decided you've had enough noise for one day. As you sit there, still and breathing deeply, your body begins to understand that the danger has passed. The trembling in your hands eases, the tightness in your chest loosens. Each breath flows a little smoother, a little warmer, as the tension slowly unwinds from your shoulders and sinks quietly into the earth. The sounds around you soften, murmured voices fading into steady, quiet. Armor settling with faint clinks, distant insects singing without fear. Even the breeze seems calmer now, brushing across your skin like something meant to soothe rather than stir. The moonlight stretches itself across the overturned ground, gentle and silver, as if trying to mend the day's sharp edges with something softer. Your eyes grow, heavier, your thoughts slower, drifting not toward the battle but toward the warmth of the moment, the closeness of your resting friends, the hush of the night, the safety of simply being still. You lean back just a little more, letting the weight leave your limbs, letting the quiet wrap around you like a blanket that expects nothing and holds everything. Whatever fear clung to you begins to loosen its grip, becoming lighter, thinner, almost transparent. You breathe again, slow, deep, steady, and feel the day finally slipping away, leaving only this calm, this rest, this gentle hum of peace. And as the night settles deeper still, you let yourself drift into the soft, dark, into quiet safety, into sleep,